we're doing this morning. I dragged my study buddies on channel with me so we can all talk about stuff. I just wanted to say hi and introduce everybody. So we have Dani Mystic. Hello. We have Dawn Michelle from Boho. And the lovely Marlene, whose name I will eventually pronounce correctly someday.
You got it.
I'm getting there. Good morning. Hi, everybody in chat. Hello. We do not have like a formal structure for today. This is just going to be a cash chit-chatting about Thoth and our journey so far. We're probably going to talk about the stuff we've been using and like, I don't know, our aha moments and that kind of thing. You guys are welcome to tag any one of us or tag me specifically if you want me to be able to put it on the screen and see it just in case it gets buried in chat. If you guys have questions about what we've been doing or how or any of that kind of stuff, throw it up at any point and I will try to make sure I spot it so I can throw it up on the screen for us. But yeah, I just thought it'd be really fun to get in here and start chatting about Thoth, because I hear people who know what they're doing talking about Thoth. But like I don't feel like we get a lot of beginners perspective on the Thoth tarot and like all of that stuff.
And I think that's kind of like a really fun place to go, especially for me, because I feel like I'm the newest out of even all four of us. Like I'm still like I'm like dipping those toes in, but it's like a really fun place to just like you said, get those aha moments out where you're just like, oh shit, look what I just found. I have a potty mouth. I'm gonna try to. I'm sorry, I'm on the channel.
It's fine.
Oh yeah, forget I'm on your channel on Three Fat Readers. We don't have to worry about that. But like I just feel like you said, having kind of a new perspective, like someone coming at this new is going to be like super fun, because I think we've all had to like piece things together for ourselves, you know?
Yeah. So I'm curious to hear from you guys. Why Thoth? Why now? What happened?
Why not? Dawn, yeah. You started this whole group, I think. It started because of you.
Yeah, maybe. For me, like, I was just like, it's time. I've been reading tarot for, I don't know, since I was 20. Okay, so let's not do the math, but since I was 20. And I've always stayed away from the Thoth because I've always heard like, it's super esoteric and like you pretty much have to have a master's degree to read it. And I'm like, all right, that's more than I want to invest in this thing. And then I was finally like, you know what? It's just like, how bad can it be, right? How intimidating can it be? I can do this. Like, if I can chop all the shit off a deck and learn the Thoth, right? Because that's a bravery moment.
Yeah. Don't let that. It sounds very much like I'm not going to let no Thoth deck scare me.
Yeah,
exactly.
I'm here because of Marlene, because I had bought my Thoth tarot. Okay, for me, I think it was like I just really want to know all the systems. Like I wanted to know all the systems. Like I feel like I would run into a Thoth reference or a Thoth looking thing and I'd be like, oh, that's Thoth. And I don't know that. And that bugged me. So I think for me, I just knew I would eventually study it, but it was terrifying. So unlike Dawn, I just put my Thoth deck on a shelf and like was like, later, some other day, later. And then Marlene messaged me about something. I can't remember. And you were like, are you going to study Thoth anytime soon? And I was like, well, maybe in a couple months. I don't know, maybe later. And then we just started talking about it. And then next thing you know, I'm in it and there was no turning back. Nothing.
I think the catalyst for me was the Outgrow Yourself Tarot and Oracle. And I think that's how I started talking. Well, I'm the one thing that's not like the other. I don't have my own.
One of us.
But I wanted to be a part of a tarot conversation forever. So I think I follow all of you guys, and I'm a mystical weaving unicorn. So I'm.
I love that.
Yeah, and but I messaged John Michelle because I saw the Outgrow Yourself, and I was like, I think you'll like this deck. And she wrote me back and said, I totally bought that deck. And then we just started talking. And she was talking about getting into Thoth, or had last year. And I was like, I'm on board with this. I want to figure this out. And I thought that the Outgrow Yourself was kind of like a really good gateway from where I had been. And I don't know. about the rest of you, but I absolutely love learning anything new.
Mhm.
And if somebody says, well, that's challenging, and I'm like, okay, challenge accepted. That's how I approach things. So and then I said to Dawn, I'm like, we've got to get Lisa on this bandwagon. And then we came together, right?
Yeah. And then I corralled Dani in. I'm like,
Yes.
are you doing this? Because like we're talking about it. Like you should
we're talking about it.
Get in here. So
For sure.
What about you, Dani? Like you probably had something before we roped you in.
Oh, yeah. Matter of fact, I got this nice huge Thoth deck in from a friend of mine, and I was like, okay, well, there's no better time than now, obviously. I had seen the Outgrow Yourself on Lisa's channel, which in general, I really feel like is a really good place for beginners to start because it's way less intimidating where it's not like, this is Thoth Tarot. This is like, no, we have majors and oracles, right? Like an oracle vibe in the same way. But like in general, it was something in the same vein as like kind of like everybody. For me, the not knowing and having to put certain decks like I just don't get it aside is really annoying to me. Number one.
Yeah.
I don't like not getting it. However, when it comes hold on, I think I'm gonna put this lower. When it comes to the Thoth, it does sometimes feel very out there for me because my knowledge and my belief structure is not so much in the I call that the high magic realm, this really occult, esoteric, Thelema kind of thing. You know what I mean? It's like that seemed untouchable to me. And it's like, I just wanted to get a better grasp of it. You know, like I don't want it to feel so foreign, but I also am not interested in like, you know, going through the deep dive of that. But I want to understand where the symbolism comes from.
Yes, exactly.
In a way that's tangible to me, you know?
Yeah. I think we're getting a little bit of echo. So if everybody wants to check your speaker volume just in case, bring it down a little. I think it's Dani that was bouncing back, but usually it's not the person who's echoing that usually is it. Okay, we'll see if that does it. That's exactly the thing. I want to be able to understand the different symbology, right? We have a question from Lady Small who says, what are the differences between Thoth and RWS? All right, ladies, what do you think?
There's a lot in my opinion. Like I'm not trying to take over the conversation here.
No, you go, girl.
Just in general, from where the approach seems very different. Again, we're talking from like a higher approach. Like I know that the RWS is still has some, you know, kind of ethereal things going on, but like I feel like the Thoth is based more on, I don't know, like older systems, the Kabbalah, things like that. So it's like what you see is very different.
Yeah.
Sorry, I am hearing echoes. I'm having trouble talking because
I know it's like distracting you. I can tell.
Oh,
yeah.
Sorry.
Sometimes it's hard when we have a group of people because you can never quite pin it down.
Oh,
Who's echoing?
Yeah. I don't know if it's me. So I feel like I wanted to say when we came on here today that like I'm brand new to this, so like I'm going to answer questions as best as I can, but there's probably a lot of folks who know that have joined us today that know a lot more. But it's I'm studying, I'm learning, and I feel like you can come to Thoth after having learned RWS or not. I mean, you can do whatever you want, but I personally just really like to add some new layers. That's what I feel like tarot is all about for me. So it's my understanding that both the Rider-Waite-Smith and the Thoth Tarot originated from the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. So Arthur Waite and Aleister Crowley, who are the creators of the decks, were a part of this esoteric occult group called the Golden Dawn. And the RWS was created in 1909, and the Thoth tarot was painted in the 40s during World War II. Yeah. And then someone else can correct me, and then printed later and gained popularity, I believe, in the 60s. So and both decks have astrology and Kabbalah meanings embedded in them. Although the reason why we all associate Kabbalah and astrology more heavily with the Thoth tarot is because the astrological and planetary glyphs are on the cards.
It's more
and the art is more aligned with those specific meanings than, say, the scenic pictures that you see on the Rider-Waite-Smith.
And I think that's what makes it more intimidating, right?
Yes.
It's like you see all these symbols, you see all these glyphs, and then there is no situation. You got 9 wands on there. So it's like overwhelming. And I think that's why so many people shy away. And it's honestly why I did. I'm like, my poor little Cajun brain ain't gonna comprehend all this stuff. You know what I'm saying? But it's not true. It's like when you really break it down, you're just like, oh, this makes so much sense. But that's very true. It's like, I think that's why it's like there are subtle differences. They come from the same level. But seeing all the stuff that Lady Frida Harris put into this is like, whoa. And I think that's what makes it so intimidating, and it feels a little overwhelming sometimes.
Yeah,
definitely.
I think that the Thoth is more like, to me, how I categorize them is that they're both, it's all tarot, right? Like it's all tarot. Whether we're talking about the Thoth or the RWS or the Marseille, it's all tarot. It all has a base 78 card structure. When it comes to like the Thoth, I look at it as like, that is like, let's get real woo, but like high vibe, really in the higher conscious realm. And then the RWS takes it down to the mundane realm. And that's kind of how I work with them, is like, it's the same system, but to me, it's just like tapping into a different oracle deck for a different energy. And I'm going to use this oracle deck for a different energy. So it's like, it's the same thing though. And I think one of the things that makes it so, I think, intimidating for new people is that we distance those two decks in our conversations going, oh, it's Thoth or it's RWS. It's all tarot though. So, and I think that along with Crowley's personal life and issues is what, because y'all know how I feel about him, but I think that is what intimidates a lot of people, but it's just a little bit, it's like stepping it up to a higher vibration or a higher level, but it's the same damn deck. Pardon my language, but
I completely agree. It's the exact same. It literally, because they're based on the exact same stuff. To me, there's only a few real differences that show up for me in like what the essential meaning is. I think that both are trying to communicate from an esoteric level, like where the astrological associations are. Once you see them in the Thoth and you study them in the Thoth, I feel like it's easier to see them in the RWS. But like, it's very clear to me that that Pamela Coleman Smith and Arthur Edward Waite were like, hey, let's show this information, but like in a way that the people can understand. We're almost condescended to, I think, a little bit almost. Whereas I feel like the Crowley Harris deck was like, let's just put it on the card and then they can see it. You know what I mean? So it's like one was more symbolic and one's more like, no, this is actually what it's about. It's kind of how I feel having looked at it, which surprised me. I didn't expect to see that.
Yeah.
And you know what I find just wild, and I don't know why I just realized it in this moment when Dawn said something about the RWS and whatever, but like it just dawned on me, these two very phallic loving men both had their decks done by women, which I don't know why that like just clicked to me, but like with all the talk, like, oh, misogynistic and phallic driven and this, that, and the other, and like both of the most popular tarot systems in the world were created with, or basically put into life by women.
Yeah.
artists, which I find very interesting. Now that it just kind of like
I'm with you.
kind of like struck me.
Well, and in both pairings, they had these esoteric conversations with each other. Like, it's very clear that Arthur Edward Waite and Pamela Coleman Smith were having those conversations, and so were Frida Harris and Crowley. They were having these like conversations.
See the conversations between Harris and Crowley, because some of that still exists today.
Yeah,
so you can see the way that they work together, and the way that they created this, and it's just it's kind of amazing to think about it. And I don't know why I never put it together. Maybe because we consider it, a Crowley tarot, and we consider it the way. And it's like, granted, now I feel like Pixie is more in the foreground and stuff like that. But like, it is very interesting how this was developed by women, innocent, the artists.
And I found in like, we can talk about it more too. And I'm just I feel like I keep leveling up with everything that I'm studying for Thoth. And, like you look at the cards and you start just looking at the meanings of the cards, but then it like opens up the next layer of like tarot history. And then it opens up the layer of Kabbalah. And then you're like, well, I need to know more about Lady Frida Harris. And then, it's like, you're just going and going. But I found that some of the female writers that have written about the Thoth approach it very differently than male writers. So I mean, it's fascinating to me. I love this.
Yeah, there's a lot of like, it's kind of interesting to me because I think for a long time I associated, how do I say this correctly? I'm going to say this and it's going to offend somebody. I just know it. But like, I associated for the longest time the Thoth tarot with a particular type of, I mean, this is like 90s baby witch stuff, right? Okay, but I associated with a very particular type of witch / tarot reader / like, do you guys know what I'm saying right now? And like, these people typically, and again, I'm widely stereotyping and generalizing, and I'm very sorry, but these people tended to be real big fans of Crowley. So to me, it felt like the Crowley deck. And I'm like, Crowley creeps me out. I'm not going to lie. Crowley creeps me the hell out. But I think that's why I was like, I'm not going to study the Thoth. I anti-hauled it. I'm like, there's no way. I picked up a different deck. I'm like, I'm going to study that instead. And then I ended up flipping. And I think that's partly because once I started looking at the artwork, it didn't feel like, to me, it didn't feel like Crowley anymore. It started to feel like Lady Frida Harris. And I don't know how that happened. It just seemed to happen. And maybe it's because when I was reading, my eyeballs would be like, okay, yeah, you're talking about Crowley. Don't care. Get back to the like meaning of the card. Like, what is it about? Let's hear from Lady Frida Harris about what she was thinking when she was doing this painting or drawing or whatever. And it shifted it for me. It stopped feeling like a Crowley deck and more like its own thing. Am I making any sense?
Totally.
I see it as Harris's deck. That's how, in my mind, it's not Crowley's deck, it's Harris's deck, because what I connect with is not his half-mad ramblings, but her artwork.
Yeah,
exactly.
And then using, the information that I've gained in various books when people, discussing her artwork, really, because Crowley was half out of his mind. If you've ever read the Book of Thoth, it's like, I always say it's madness with some touches of genius in there.
Yeah, it's difficult.
But I relate to it as Harris's deck, not Crowley's, because it's her artwork.
And I mean, if you go back to, I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. Even anything you read with Crowley, it's difficult. I know, especially some of his older stuff that I haven't read personally, but I've seen bits and pieces. I've listened to a lot about his like crazy side of life, right? And it's a lot of like rambling, no punctuation, just kind of train of thought kind of writing. And I think that's another reason that a lot of people pull away from it too. You know what I mean? Because it's like, oh, well, I don't get what he's saying. And it's like, that's why Marlene sent us something, I forget who it was from, but they talked about, kind of, that quote. Like making it your own. Like you take what feels right, basically, the meanings and the symbolism and the things like that, and kind of separate that from kind of like Dawn was saying, the madness of Crowley himself, and like even just like the Book of Thoth and like Duquette's book. Like this is how Lisa managed to get me into the Thoth, because I bought Duquette's book. And I was like, if this is not the driest most heart-crushing,
Place to start.
soul-crushing thing I've ever read in my life. I was like, oh my God.
Yep.
I can't.
Yep. I
And
totally
so
hear you.
I was trying to like read about it, and it just wasn't working. And Lisa was like, just pull your cards and do it that way. And I was like, okay, because I was trying to do it opposite, right? I was trying to read and then get into it.
Yeah, that's what I told myself too.
Wait, you wanted to read everything first before you started even looking at cards.
And
I was in the same trap for a bit until Marlene and I started talking. Yeah,
I could not do that. It really just, everybody's like, Duquette dry, y'all.
Okay.
For me,
some people think he's really funny though, Danny. Like some people write about him like in these spheres of like all of this like really like esoteric stuff. Like he is, and that's funny. Like he's the most like down to earth.
I've watched his videos. I've even watched him reading his own book. Like, you know what I mean? Like I've watched it, but it is still like, it's very tongue in cheek. I agree. But like at the same time, like I'm trying to learn and you're still trying to hide things from me.
Yeah. You know
what I mean?
I think because there's a lot of conversation in the chat right now. Everybody's like, he's not dry. And I'm like,
I
want to clarify. I want to say, because I devoured this book. However, and like of the stuff that I have previously encountered, okay, compared to the Book of Thoth, this is incredibly readable and enjoyable. This is lovely. Okay. But everything's relative. And for a long time, this was the one. What I liked about this is that while it was kind of heady and I did get into it and I did enjoy it, once I got past the introductory stuff, which was all about like little bit, like one of the things he tries to do in this book is give you a little bit of sex magic, a little bit of Kabbalah, a little bit of color theory, a little bit of this, a little bit of astrology, so that you can at least kind of start to wrap your head around the system. And I do think he does that really, really well. But as soon as you get into the card descriptions, what I feel like I got out of it mostly was little tidbits of the letters between Harris and Crowley.
Those are the best part.
That was what I got out of it. But as far as like unpacking the meaning of each card, this was not helpful to me at all. That's where I fell off the book. What'd you say?
I remember you're like, guys, I don't think so.
I'm over it now. And I read this book. I did. I highlighted the crap out of it. I had a great time, but like I hit a wall with it. And so I think that's it. But his style compared to other people that have talked about Thoth historically, way better. But like then it got better.
And I agree with that. But like you also have to understand, like for all the people who are coming at me, like I get it. But you have to understand where my brain is. My brain doesn't work that way. So it was a lot harder, right? And so this is what kept me from learning Thoth. So when I took that out and then went elsewhere and then can come back to that.
Yes.
Do you see what I mean? That's what made it better. Yeah. But if you're like me and you came to this and you were like, I cannot, like, no. Yeah. Okay. Go elsewhere. Then come back.
Great advice.
You know, it felt like everything was going over my head. It was like that womp, 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 Charlie Brown talk. You know what I mean? It's like it just couldn't click it to me. You know? Yeah. Somebody asked which books that I like. I got one. I don't think y'all have this one, right? The Thoth Companion.
Yeah, yours is. And by the way, you guys, we have a list. It should be in the description box right now, but we have a list of like all of our resources that we compiled ahead of time. And we put links to everything in the description box so you can check it out.
Hold please. I'll show you.
I was like, what just happened? So, it's okay.
It's a Thoth Companion.
Get, like a little bit away from the.
I know,
like this. Tilt it like that a little. Yeah, there you go. Thoth Tarot Companion, right? Yeah.
The Thoth Companion. This is by Michael Osiris Snuffin.
I've heard that name a lot on the podcast.
I really like the way that he breaks it down, because this is I'm coming at it looking for breaking down what's in the cards and things like that. And I really do love the way that he breaks it down, and it made it feel approachable to me, but still having so much depth to where it was, I don't want to say I needed it dumbed down. Like, I don't want y'all to think I'm an idiot, but with this, my brain doesn't want to wrap around it because it feels too much. even though it's not, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
I agree
you
with
call me
you,
Dani if
Dani.
you
Yeah.
want, but like I wanted something that I could get it and then expand, and then get it and then expand, versus trying to learn all of Thelema just to learn the thoughts.
Yeah, that's such a good point. What about you two, Marlene and Don? What were your favorite, like your first favorite Thoth book?
This was mine.
Mirror of the Soul.
Oh,
Mirror
I
of the
didn't hear
Soul.
so much about that. Yeah.
This was the one that made Thoth approachable for me.
Okay.
Like I had all of the tarot deciphered and the Book of Thoth and the Ducat book and all of those, and I'd read all of those, and this was the one which was a recommendation from Nina at Shuffle Tarot, and which I don't know if she's on today, but it's her birthday today.
Happy birthday!
Happy birthday, Nina, if you're there. And anyway, that was the book that, like, I just started getting out the cards and I just started doing readings and using this as my reference. And this was like, took it out of that completely esoteric. I feel like I need a master's degree to understand what's going on in these cards okay, I can use this for absolutely everyday readings just like I would any other deck.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the book that made it approachable for me.
I'm gonna have to grab that one too.
What about you, Marlene?
My favorite is Tarot Deciphered. I think Dawn just mentioned it too.
Oh yeah,
I mean, this is enormous.
It's a big one.
The reason why I love Tarot Deciphered so much is because I'm newer to tarot, I think, than all of the rest of the group. So I still have all of my RWS study very fresh, with me. And because Tarot Deciphered and the lovely Marlene and T. Susan Chang, who have the Fortune's Wheelhouse podcast, which I love because I have a long work commute. So it's great for me. This was like having the comparison between the two decks really is what helped me understand. So I just think that way. I compare, contrast. That is how I learn really well.
I picked this up because I love Marlene and T. Susan Chang. I also love the Fortune's Wheelhouse, but I have a hard time with the podcast, and I felt like this was going to be the podcast in a book. Would you agree that that's kind of what this is?
It is, because you can see when they narrow down like the themes of each card, you can see that those are specifically things that they discussed in that podcast. Yeah. And I also I know some people feel like they have to read about every single card, from the Fool to, the end before they can start. And I literally was like, Dawn Michelle inspired me because we did Thoth a day. So I had one card a day and I just went out of order. So I'm like, I'm going to read this and I'm going to learn this out of order. It's going to make sense for me this way. Some people can't, some people don't learn like that, but that worked for me. And that was just like unpeeling layer one.
Yeah. Dustin, are you talking about this one? Because I think I had the exact same issue. So when I got into, I was really excited to get into this, but what I found was, there's two things that unfortunately I think were major issues. The first being, for me, just major issues for me. The first being that they couldn't get permission to use the Thoth tarot images in the book, which is really annoying. There was something in here about how that you can only get permission to use the Thoth imagery from the copyright holder if the book is only about Thoth. Apparently that's a thing. So they couldn't use the Thoth imagery, so they used the Tabula Mundi, which was tricky for me because I wanted to see the Thoth imagery addressed in the book. So that was it was like an annoying thing that I couldn't get past. But then I agree. I feel like it was very, I don't know what tabular means, but like how I'm interpreting that in my brain is kind of how I incorporated, or how I felt about this book, which is that it felt like the bits that I wanted, the meaty, chunky bits about really comparing the imagery of the two to each other and like how they're both showing the same thing. It felt too segmented. I don't know if that's what you mean by tabular, but that's how it felt to me. Like it was like too compartmentalized in each section. And I struggled with that. It didn't feel like I could get into the Thoth specifically, but the more I'm kind of flipping through it now going, now that I've done all my other studies, I feel like I would actually get a lot more out of this book now. But when I first tried to pick it up, I was like, this is it. Also, it's a little heavy to carry around with me because I was doing the same thing y'all were doing because of Dawn and Marlene, where I I was pulling a card a day, and I was researching whatever card I drew as I drew it, and that really also helped to like make it more palatable, easier to do.
Now, question, because I just thought about it. I believe this book is out of print, but Lisa, you have this one too as well, right? The Dictionary of Tarot. That's why I got this. But I'm just realizing I never thought to pull this out because this has like, okay, for the Nine of Swords, we can talk about what it says, like design and interpretation of Marseille, Waite, Aquarian, Crowley, and New.
Yeah.
But then the interpretation is like the Case, Crowley, Douglas, Golden Dawn, Gray, Grimald, Hewson, I believe it's how it says, Con, Kaplan.
Yeah.
Mathers, Papez, something else I can't pronounce, Waite, and then Suggested. Like, there's so much for each one. Where I this is one I haven't pulled out yet. Has anyone looked at this as they're studying the Thoth?
No.
Looked at it?
No, not yet, but I will pull it out. My favorite, you guys know, because I will stand on my little pillar of boxiness and like tell anybody who says anything about Thoth that they should read these books. My favorites are the
We all know what's coming.
Oh no.
It was like hardcore. I was like, you better get these books. I was like, what?
I've only been talking about this for the last 5 months.
Shut up about it. I have them in Kindle and I have them in paper. The Kindle's better. There's some formatting issues with the paper.
Oh yeah,
but yeah,
Oh,
a little bit. There's just some stuff that was clearly Dawn didn't do this, is what I'm saying. Dawn would have done it. Literally the whole time I'm going through, I'm like, Dawn wouldn't have missed that. Dawn wouldn't have missed that. But anyways, the content is amazing. There are 3 volumes. I really liked them on Kindle because I could just literally search for whatever card, because you have the major arcana, you have the court cards, and you have the minor arcana, all in 3 different volumes. But this was good. This is what the Thoth book that I needed to like wrap my brain around. He just does such an amazing job of like in every single card pulling direct quotes from Crowley, so pulling stuff from the Book of Thoth and Liberty and like all these different books and like making sense of it, rather than, so I don't have to go mine through those books because it's here. I can like, he pulls out the relevant bits and says, these are the bits, and then these are my interpretation of the bits. And like, he just does such an incredible job of demystifying it. And then he has, and this is so good, I think, in the section, he has stuff like, he'll have a section where it breaks down the different symbols. So this is like on the wheel card. So he talks about the Sphinx, Hermanubis, Typhon. There'll be key phrases, keywords. Like it's deliciously meaty, and it's very conversational, comparative. It's more conversational than Duquette. And I felt like Duquette's more conversational than Crowley, but it just gets better and better. But it's so good.
it is good. I liked it a lot. After you talked about it, it didn't take me long to get it. And that's one of the best advice that I can give anybody that's starting out is like, get all the books, like read all the articles,
read what makes you,
eat it up, and then that's kind of like the quote that you were talking about, Dani, that I sent, in the group, is that like, open it all up. I mean, literally tarot is the secrets, the mysteries, and and the cards are the keys to it. Right. Yeah. So like open it all up, and then, think about what you agree with or don't agree with, or what works for you, doesn't work for you, in the way that you study it, and the way that you learn it, and the way that you then want to read with it.
I almost threw this away.
Yes, I know. I told you not to.
I didn't. But when I was going through Katz's books, I was reading this and I was like, this is trash. So I had so many opinions. Okay, but I've totally come back to it and I love it now. And that's because I'm not looking to it to study Thoth. I'm looking to it to work with Thoth.
Use Thoth. Yeah.
This works good as a guidebook to Thoth. It works, in my opinion, terribly as a research the Thoth book. So that's where I ran into, because I'm like, no, he says there's this on the card. And I know for a fact, because I've checked 7 other resources, that is incorrect. And I was like getting mad at it. Just little things like the
I
Night
think
One
that book, so the Mirror of the Soul,
horn.
the Mirror of the Soul, I think taps more into like the astrology. And I don't know when this book was published. I think 80s. But
and it was originally written in German, was it not? And then translated?
Oh, so there's some things that are going to be lost in translation.
Yeah, 1988. 1988. Yeah.
So it gives you like I really like using it for readings because it gives you then like jumping off points to go from. So like it'll have let me see. It has it gives you the description. And then so it gives you keywords, it gives you a description of the card, then it gives an indication, a question, a suggestion, and an
It's like an action. The suggestion's like a meditation or a activity you can do, which is cool.
I just opened up the one that's I now live out my sexual desires. What's going on here? It's the
What
Prince
card
of
is that?
Yeah.
The lust card?
The Prince of Cups.
Oh, okay. I mean, I'm still getting to know this. Don't take this as a firm recommendation.
I can't believe that's one I opened to. Talk about bibliomancy, right, Dawn?
Well, that's.
I think what I tell people, use this. I just have the one out here, but use this to learn Thoth and use this to read with it.
Agreed.
That's what I tell people.
Yeah, I would agree. Like, and I liked the Kindle of the Marcus Katz books because you can open a Kindle Cloud Reader, or you can open it in your thing, and then you can just search for the title of the card. So you can open up the correct book, search for the title of the card, pull it up, read that chunk, off you go. I haven't actually read more than maybe 10% or 20% of the intro and outro text of the books. I've just been diving into the card by card stuff. There's one other book I wanted to mention. I'm sure there's others you guys want to mention, but Keywords, I think it's called Keywords of the Crowley Tarot, or Keywords. It's in the description box, but it's the keyword based one. And I actually first found out about that book from Kelly at The Truth and Story, who years ago did a video about it, and goes through that book in detail. I didn't grab that video link. So if anybody who's in the chat, who's a mod and can do it, wants to grab it, it's Keywords of the Thoth Tarot, and it's a Kelly at The Truth and Story video. But that book is also really good, in my opinion, for a snapshot. Still doesn't feel as accurate as Marcus Katz or even Duquette, but it's really good, and it gives you like a breakdown of like all the things on the card and kind of roughly what they could mean or do mean, depending on your perspective. So good overview books. If you were just looking to get one, I like the one Dani recommended, sounded pretty good. Keywords,
and it's got everything. It's got everything in it, and it's like simple, bite size. It's kind of like Katz condense
more. That's good. Yeah. And I think we all used multiple.
Did I tell you guys about this one?
Okay, I asked about that one a while back because I almost grabbed it, and then I was like,
This is newer to me, and I might not have been as thorough and put it on the list, but it's really good. Just in terms of like breaking down the symbology, but then it talks like it'll take each of the cards and then it'll give you like the energy of the card. You might really like that a lot, Dani. And then the little section that I like the best is on the inner level, because I tarot for me is personal self-growth, and that's what I like about it the most. But then it gives you the astrology, where the tree of life, I Ching, analogy, the image, and keywords.
Nice. Speaking of I Ching, have any of you kind of connected that? I haven't.
I started to. Actually, I can't remember which video I was making. It was one of my Thothy walkthroughs. And at one point, I noticed that all the quartz on that deck, what deck was it?
Ashera.
Was it Ashera? Yeah, it must have been. So it has the I Ching hexagram on each of the court cards. And so I pulled out the book that goes with my Tao Oracle, which is I Ching based, because it also has the trigram. So this has all 64 hexagrams are on this deck. So I pulled this out, and I pulled out the guidebook, and I tried to do some comparing of energies. The guidebook was less helpful, but if you find the card from this deck that matches the I Ching and the court card, there was some cool correlations that I noticed. So
now, what is that deck you have in your hands?
Oh, sorry. This is called the Tao Oracle.
The Tao Oracle.
One of my oldest oracles. I've had it forever, but it's a deck based on the 64 hexagrams of the I Ching. So I Ching, I think I say that wrong.
I Ching, yeah.
But it's a cool layer. I haven't dug into it crazy deep, but I did kind of.
That's interesting. I haven't looked at it at all. So,
are there any books that we haven't mentioned yet that we want to mention before we move away from books a little bit?
I have one more. Well, I guess maybe one more book, and the other one is a guidebook.
We'll be getting into deck and guidebooks.
If you want to like pivot completely, apparently away from Crowley, the Tarot Handbook, Angelus Aeon. So I'd seen this book recommended by lots of tarot tubers like you guys, but I heard of it, or I got excited about it when I read an article that I sent you all by Mary K. Greer about how this author put this out and then like was roasted because of how she approached the Thoth tarot, in how like literally at the beginning she says, you know, Crowley thinks this, but I kind of think he's wrong. So I'm going to do my own thing. I'm paraphrasing here, of course. So if any of you that feel like that, you know, I haven't really spent a lot of time with it yet, but I'm excited for that angle.
Yeah.
Well, I have
and somebody just mentioned in chat.
Sure.
Oh, sorry. What was that, Dani?
I said I think I might want to pick that up for sure.
Yeah. Somebody mentioned in chat. Oh, here it is. Backyard Naturalist Tarot. It's worth noting that at least the large deck comes with a sparse but helpful little white book. The book is actually really helpful because a lot of the notes in the cards on here, I believe, are actually Lady Frida Harris's notes on the art gallery showings of the painting. So it's more her interpretations. That's how I could have that wrong. That's how I interpreted what I found in here. And there's like 4 or 5 different sets of meanings, or 3 or 4 different sets of meanings. And I used this every single time I pulled the card along with my other research. And it did have lots of useful tidbits. A lot of the little snapshots in here are really, really good. But it talks about the different gallery showings that she did of the artwork. And I think, and please feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, that some of these meanings come from her describing the meaning of the card for the gallery. But I don't know.
That's what I understood, but
yeah. What about you, Donna, Marlene? Did you guys work with these?
I worked with that one last year when I first started like dipping my toes in before I had a bunch of reference books. So I just had the deck. And so I used that for a little bit when I first started, and I was like, yeah, I need more than that because there's so much going on in these images that I want to dive into what all the little things mean. But I think for a jumping off point, like I think you can totally just take the deck, like, and the little guidebook, and like any deck, you can take it and read with it.
Read with it.
I think we all get so hung up in the fact that it's the Thoth, right? It's like there's this whole kind of layer of expectation with that deck. And like, I mean, I'm gonna sound like a broken record. It's a tarot deck. Like it reads like a tarot deck.
It's a tarot deck, yeah.
And it's hard. It does get a little swampy right there. You know what I mean? Like, we psych ourselves out a lot.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah,
For
that's
sure,
very true. We had a question that I want to put up because I'm super curious what you guys think. So Elizabeth says, on the lust card, the grail is totally a clitoris, right? And why does lust replace strength? So let's just for a second look at the card, everybody, so we can make a determination. Let me hide this for a second. Okay. That is the lust card. Let me get it in there. There we go. So the grail is this part right there, which I've never looked at it that way, but super curious what y'all think. First of all,
I mean, sure. If you see it, why not?
I mean, there's a lot of sexual magic within all of this.
Yeah.
And I feel like especially as Americans, we're all kind of prudish in that way because that's how we were raised to be, right? Like, whatever. But in my opinion, like, yeah, lust and strength is, to me, kind of can correspond within itself, because how hard is it to be fully embodied in your own sexuality?
Yeah.
Ask anyone who's had to come out of the closet. Ask anyone who's dealt with, sexuality in whatever way, shape, or fashion. Like, you have to have the strength to say what you want and want what you want and go for it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So, like, in that sense, like, it is the holy grail because a lot of people don't know where it is.
I mean, that's hilarious. I love you so much.
Let's be honest.
It's a thing.
So it's like
a search. Yeah.
Yeah. It's about finding that and then taking control of it. Like, I kind of like it. You know what I mean?
I
like
like it too.
It is
I like
that
the passion like, I mean, if we're looking at like the difference between strength and lust, One of the things I love about this card is it really speaks to giving into your passions or following your passions, noticing where those are. And I think you can marry the two concepts. You can look at the Rider-Waite-Smith strength card as we are facing the wildness within us and looking at how we can tame or harmonize with it. And really, is that so far off from the idea of passion and lust and the idea that we might hunger for something or feel really wild in a way? And how can we harmonize with that energy or befriend that energy? To me, they're not as far apart as they might look at first glance to be. But I'm curious what you guys think about lust versus strength also.
I think it's two sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
Like as Crowley and Harris tend to do, it's more direct in their deck than it is in Waite and Smith's deck. Waite and Smith's deck is very, like, it's very mundane. It's very in the everyday world. It's kind of like the symbols are, some people say they're hidden. Sometimes I think they're just not there. If, like, that's my personal opinion. It's like they're not hidden, they're just not there, because it's a deck embodying the everyday world, where I think the Crowley Harris deck takes that and shows that same energy, like, alive and fully embodied without any of that sort of reservation or that conservativeness. Because I think it's also important to remember that Waite was a Catholic, right? He was a Catholic mystic. And I do believe that Smith was also, I'm trying to remember back to my study, but I feel like she had some influence there as well, maybe was a Catholic or whatever. So I feel like it is where you have the opposite end of that, where Crowley is like, you know, damn the man to everything, basically, right? That was his MO. And I think you see that reflected, those two energies reflected in those two decks. But I think it's just two sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
Is my personal take on it.
I love that. What about you, Marlene?
Oh, I was looking up the original title, or the Golden Dawn title of the card, which is The Daughter of the Flaming Sword. And I just thought that's great. If you want to talk about phallic or clitoris or whatever, that's like right there.
Yeah,
that's true. I think there's something very primal about both depictions. There's like a very primal energy going on there, which you can see in an idea around strength, in an idea around lust, or the both mixed together.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's like it's like it's passion. It's
well, if you think about it, if you think of the way that they showed that, the one that you just put up, the comment that you just put up, when they're like, oh, well, lust has a negative connotation because of one of the deadly sins, while strength is one of the heavenly virtues, right? So it's kind of like,
I didn't realize.
It's kind of both sides of that coin, like Dawn Michelle was saying. And like I said at the beginning, like, sometimes strength is lust. And Aeon made a good point about, you know, having strength not to go after things, and that the fire, I almost said something way off, I'm not gonna say it, but the fire thing that you just talked about, Marlena, from the Golden Dawn, it's like that kind of puts that in there. That's that passion that we're trying to either tame or bring forward. So I feel like it's just kind of all jumbled in the pot, you know?
I love what Kyra says here about, if strength is about controlling the wildness, it is also about accepting and letting in the wildness. Two sides of the same coin, depending on the reading. I really like that. I like that you can look at it either way, like giving yourself over to it if that's what you need or what's appropriate in that moment, or controlling it, reining it in. And in either way, it's a relationship with that energy. And this is what I feel like I kept finding when I was studying the Thoth. The more that I looked at it, the more I realized how not dissimilar it was from the Rider-Waite-Smith. This is actually a really cool bridge to ask a fun question. So I know exactly what my answer is. I'm curious if it'll be the same as either of your guys's, but what, if any, or can you think of at least one example of a card that reading about it in the Thoth completely changed how you look at that card, period? Like a big aha moment about that specific card. Like, those are some cool discussions about strength, and I'm just curious. Who's got one that comes to mind?
I have one that came to mind just the other day, when we did our little Thoth thing for the week. The reading about, let me see if I can find it. And kind of diving more into the Four of Cups and how it's depicted here. Excuse me. Really kind of opened up some stuff for me.
The Four of Cups? Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
The way that it's okay, right here. Because I never noticed before, but is it Snuffin? I always feel so dumb saying that. Is that his name? Yeah.
Snuffin? What's this?
That's the book you
Thoth
have. We
Companion.
don't.
The Thoth Companion, the one that I have.
Snuffin.
Talks about how these are set and stable on that pedestal, right? On that, on the leaves of like the lotus or the help me, lily pad, like the pad.
Yeah.
Whereas these, they are still squared, but they are on the vines and they are not as stable.
Oh, interesting.
To where it's like you have this and it's kind of overpowering and kind of comes down, flowing into those bottom cups, which are still kind of moving, right?
Interesting.
Like,
so there's some flexibility in the stability.
There's flexibility in there. And
That's
let me
cool.
see if I can find what he said, because I was just like, oh, I never saw it that way. And so like reading from what he said was like an aha moment for me, because I never thought about having that, because when I think of a four, I always think of a stability type thing, and it looks very stable until you really pay attention to what's going on and how precarious those bottom two cups are. Let me see if I can find what he said that kind of like, oh yeah, you know.
I like that because, and really everything is so intentional. This is one thing I really came to appreciate about the Thoth very quickly. Everything in the card is so intentional artistically when how it's depicted. It's so intentional. Yeah.
Here, I found it. It said the weakness in this card is that all of its main attributes are associated with water. Blah, 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 blah. That the moon is the ruler of Cancer only strengthens the watery imbalance. So it's like the imbalance of the water, kind of the way that it's flowing down. Talks about the solar. I'm trying to find the exact part. I thought I found it, but I didn't. The cloudy sky learns to the cups have square bases indicating the stability of Hesed, yet while the upper cups rest firmly on the pads, the lower cups lack a stable base, suggesting the beginning of instability.
Which, of course, leads us into the 5, where we do have instability. That's so interesting. It's like the foundation is shaky. It looks stable. It looks good, but the foundation has some shakiness to it.
Exactly. Not everything is as it seems. It's kind of surface level.
That's right. It's just, and it's the moon in Cancer. So the moon,
it's more flexible. What about you, Marlene or Don? Any specific card that you were like, oh yeah, that's different than what I've encountered before, or like a big aha moment?
I think for me it was this one, the Seven of Cups.
Oh yeah.
Pull that one
so because this is the, talk about two sides of the same coin, this is the exact opposite energy of the Waite Smith, right? Where we see have all the cups and it's the pie in the sky and too many choices, where this is like, yeah, you got too many choices and you're drowning in them. It's all this sludge and
come on now.
It's like a totally different.
Yeah. There you go.
There you go. Yeah, you can see it. It's like it's the exact opposite of what we tend to see.
I used to watch this show. I used to watch this show as a kid called The Phantom Toll Booth. Okay, and there is this point where he goes into the doldrums. And everything is like drippy. They try to slow you down, and it's like sludge and almost like a quicksand kind of vibe. And that's immediately what I thought. It's like when you go into those doldrums, right? And this is really obscure. I had to find, whatever. I ended up finding it on DVD just so I could show my little girl. But like somebody knows what it is, but they talk about it kind of goes through, like they go through math and science and words and stuff like that, but the doldrums look like that, and it's that same idea of like there's so much to do, there's so much to go on, but it's like it just brings that back down.
It's the Bog of Eternal Stench. That's great.
That's I only watched The Labyrinth in the last few months, and like now this is forever and ever the Bog of Eternal Stench. I can't get it out of my brain. And this did change. I feel like the 7s in general were big shifts for me with the Thoth. I feel like I understand the 7 a lot better having studied the Thoth. I feel like there's just so much in the 7s in general. That was really good. Yeah, I agree. I think it's also another one of those where it's two sides of the same coin. It's just we don't think about it's always so dreamy and positive looking in the RWS until you realize that you're really stuck. You're really in a heavy place. It just you're doing the grass is greener thing, you're doing the trying to figure out where to go thing, but it's not a great place to be. What about you, Marlena?
So for me, it's the Aeon or Aeon. I believe it's pronounced Aeon.
That's a good one.
And this also came up in one of our group readings. And so for me, it really changes the way. So this is in the Rider-Waite-Smith. This would be the Judgment card. And here it is, the Aeon. And if you read any of the books that we've recommended for Thoth study or to start off, one of the biggest differences between the two decks is that card and the way in which Crowley wrote about these ages of man, right? And the age, the Aeon that we're currently in, and I guess they span, I don't know how many thousands of years, whatever they're supposed to span, is the one that we're in now. And so the Aeon of Horus, and well, not like I'm doing my whole teacher vibe. Sorry,
it's all good.
without getting too digging into it, it just feels like, and I think one of you or all of us agreed that this mimicked our specific journey with Thoth, and we all were coming together to feel like it's changing the way that we look at tarot, so the way that we look at ourselves, our world, our community around us, and everything. And it's fundamentally changing the way that we see things. And my favorite keyword for this card is becoming. So I just really like that
so much.
Yeah. So that one, it was great. It was great. And that, I mean, I guess, I'm not a big Crowley fan, but I respect this idea in general. So
what about you, Lisa?
Mine is the Seven of Swords. This was one of the first cards I drew.
I remember you telling me about the
seriously bent poor Marlene's ear about it, and I don't think I have the right reference tool in front of me. It might have been in Duquette's book, but let me show it. Okay, hold on. Let me show the card. So it looks like a pip card. This is what really blew my mind. This card was what I was like, oh, I like the Thoth. Like that, because it's not just seven. It looks like it's just seven swords. Look at it from a distance. How cool. Nice. Seven swords. Boring. Blah, blah, blah. But then you get up closer, and please camera work with me for this. Yes. Okay. Look at the hilts of the swords. Each one is a planetary glyph. This is the coolest shit ever. I just can't with this. This is so cool. So the keyword for this card in the Thoth is futility. And this was one of the ones that I was like, what the hell? Come on now. Because to me, the Seven of Swords in RWS was always the sneak card. Something's not quite right. The futility card is all about your internal processes and how you self-sabotage, how you get in your own way. Each one of these planetary glyphs, and I hope it's in the Duquette book. But when I first encountered this information, my mind was just blown. Each one stands for a different way, a different kind of internal thinking. And for example, the moon card, which is all about intuition, is I don't trust my intuition. The there was a list of them, and I want to find it so bad.
And Mirror of the Soul too, Lisa. There's a good breakdown of them.
Seven of Swords in Duquette. I don't.
Here it is. No, it doesn't say it in Duquette's book either. What book did I encounter this in? But it was a list, and it was each planetary glyph stands for a different way.
It's I have in Mirror of the Soul, it has a phrase with each one. Neptune.
Yes,
everything seems to be clouded by a film or a veil. Venus, but it's just too good to be true. Mars, I haven't the energy. There's no time. Jupiter, there's too much good at once, and so on. Yeah.
Yes. And Mercury, I can't communicate my ideas. Or Pluto, each one is associated with a different way you're in your head about why it's futile. And I thought the idea that because we hit this wall so often, and it's such a swordsy mental process kind of card, it makes so much sense that it would be about how you're thinking about a situation, how you're feeling like it's futile to move forward and then I started tying it in with RWS, and I was like, well, maybe that's why the person in the RWS is going through all these sneaky ways to get what they need, because they feel like they can't do it the regular way. It's like imposter syndrome, and I'm not good enough, so I must have to take this shortcut to get what I want. And it just expanded the meaning of both cards. And I was like, oh, I'm all in on this Thoth stuff. I am here. I am doing it.
You know
It was
what
that
else
card.
Yay.
kind of opened my eyes, and like I never, like, you can use this for whatever tarot deck, but like listening to, I know we're gonna get into like YouTube-y stuff.
Yeah.
What's her name? Beta?
Yeah. Beata or Beta or something.
Beata
Yeah.
talks
She's linked
about
down below.
the wheel.
Oh, that video was so
Mhm.
good.
The what is it? The Deccan
The
wheel?
Deccan Wheel.
The
Yeah.
I never say it right, but the way that, like, I was just listening to the one she did about one of the it might have been the 10 of Wands, where on the wheel it's on all of the Sabbats, on like the solstice and the equinox, the tens fall there, and like how all of these things kind of go with not only the zodiacal correspondences, but the days itself, and like adding timing in and like where things fall. And I just found that really interesting, which is another reason why I'm really enjoying learning the Thoth, because this brings to, like we talked about before, all of tarot, right? Bringing that in where the Queen of Wands is within, like Venus and the Sun and Aries and Pisces, and like where it goes and all this chunk. Another book that I'm just realizing that I really didn't snatch, but I probably should have, is Tarot and Astrology, which has a Thothy vibe to it as well, which will kind of bring those kind of ideas in, where you bring in all of the astrological kind of vibes into tarot itself, which I usually use as a guide, but like, again, just realizing that would probably be really good to have alongside the Thoth tarot.
Yeah, totally. Speaking of YouTube stuff, so Dani was just talking about Beata Tarot tutorials. The channel's linked down below. That's my favorite one. She's not through the whole deck yet, but she has some really good foundational videos on the Tree of Life, as well as the deck and wheel, like Dani was talking about. And then she's been going through card by card, starting with the minors. And I think she's just finished the
I think so.
cups or swords. I can't remember. She's done wands.
There's swords, there's wands, and I think she's finishing the cups.
Yeah. And they're short videos. So it's not like you're there for, a long time.
Exactly.
Yeah, they're brilliant. They're absolutely brilliant. What other YouTube resources? Because we do have some linked down below. Did you guys
and
like?
Can I just say for her too, like the way that, like Katz and a few of the other ones kind of talk about what Crowley has said and then kind of dissects that. She does that for her cards. So she'll say, Crowley said this about the card. Now let me break it down. I kind of like that because it feels like, tell me like I'm 5.
Yeah, same. Yeah, same.
I want to hear it and then explain it to me like I'm 5 years old.
Yeah.
Gotcha. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. That's totally true. Yeah, hers I've been watching religiously. But there was other YouTube stuff I think we have linked down below. Does anybody want to speak to anything else?
Yeah, I really love Honey at Fierce and Pretty. Oh my gosh. Well, I love her channel in general, but she has a whole series that's called Thoth Studies. And while she doesn't go like card by card breaking down like all the meanings of the cards, she has so much like resources, like all of like everything I got that we didn't already have. I got the idea or the book name from Fierce and Pretty, and I haven't gotten to it yet, but there's a side-by-side comparison, I think, of RWS and Thoth.
Cool.
I love those kinds of videos.
I do too.
Yeah.
Hint.
We have her in the list, right? We have Fierce and Pretty down below, I think. Yeah.
Yes.
Yay. Oh, Lennon Smith, Tammy Pie says, yes, I have Lennon's channel linked below. She does Thoth Thursdays and has some incredibly good conversational, take you through her thought process kind of videos on Thoth. And there's another channel I found. It's older, but she has short, like 3 to 5 minute clip videos, I think, on every single Thoth card in the deck. And hers feel a tiny bit more dated, but they're good. And that's also linked down below. I can't remember the name of that one though.
Oh, you don't remember? Okay.
James Feeney does a lot with Thoth, but the one that I loved the most was doing a reading as Aleister Crowley would, which is on the list of things to try eventually. But I love that.
That was a fun one.
What's that?
I said that was a fun one. Nina from Shuffle Tarot has a few Thoth things too. She has a Facebook group as well.
Yes, she does. We have that link down below. What's it? Thoth from Scratch.
Thoth from Scratch, yeah.
Yeah. So she's got
she kind of did like us. Like, I'm a total beginner, so let's do it together.
I love that.
Yeah.
And me too. She was doing astrology, and she was like, "So I learned this already, and now I've kind of forgotten it. So I'm teaching it to myself again." And I so feel that.
Yeah.
I didn't know what all the lists look like at one point. Now I don't remember.
Yeah. The one I was thinking about, Dani, or talking about is Suzanne Wagner.
Okay, Suzanne. Okay,
little short, like 3-5 minute videos. They're really good if I just want to quickly refresh. But hers are more interpretive, so they're not like this is what the symbology is. It's more like here's kind of what this means if you get it in a reading. What this means, yeah, which is good. So that was really fun. What about let's take a moment actually to answer a couple questions, and then maybe we'll talk about some Thoth clones or other Thoth decks we've been playing with or enjoying. So Greta asks, is Thoth a must-try for tarot fans? Tell us why. What did it add to your practice? Which I think we've been unpacking a bit as we go. But what do you guys think? What did you feel like it added in general to your practice?
Everybody talk at once.
You go, Dawn.
So we're all like sitting here thinking, what did it add? For me, it added like that one last piece of the puzzle, that one last major system that I had yet to really dive into.
Yeah.
And I've actually found that because, like, for me, I wasn't taught to read tarot out of a book originally. I was taught by a friend who was taught by a family down the line. So it was like this generational tarot practice. So I often say the way I read tarot doesn't really align with any type of system because I read very numerologically and elemental, and the numbers matter and all of that. And as I've been learning the Thoth, I'm like, a lot of this aligns. And so now I'm thinking that maybe back in the day, like, because I can't even remember, it was some weird deck that we were working with that I have never seen and I don't know the name of, but I'm thinking now as I've been studying, I think there was a lot of Thoth influence into that system. So for me, it kind of also, not only was that last piece of the puzzle, but it kind of validated the weird way I read tarot, as in like, okay, you're not just making crap up. It's good. Like, there's some legitimate information here.
Yeah. That's awesome. What about you two?
Go ahead, Marlene.
That I haven't already said. So I guess, I mean, I can speak a little bit to like explaining how I approach the tarot, which is very academically and in a literary way too. You know, I taught English for a long time, and so I love, you know, literature, philosophy. So for me, it wasn't like immediate like a spiritual thing like it might be for some folks. So I'm like, I want to learn as much as I can. And so Thoth just opened up, like I said, because it's not apparent when you start learning or start reading with a Rider-Waite-Smith, that there's this layer of Kabbalah and this layer of astrology in there. Like it is when you look literally just at the depiction in the Thoth deck. So I started Kabbalah, really probably is the first thing, and Hermetic Kabbalah is, so if anybody, you know, to distinguish between Jewish mysticism and the Hermetic Kabbalah is where I'm at right now, and it's like so exciting to learn. Just learning it.
Yeah, I feel like the Kabbalah specifically is something that I did not see myself incorporating, but has happened automatically through studying the Thoth. Like, oh, okay, like I feel like I have my head wrapped around a lot of the Sephirot, which was never something I thought was going to happen. And it didn't happen because I was like, oh, I'm going to study Kabbalah now, or Hermetic Kabbalah, like you pointed out. It's because in all of the references, you're like, oh, this is a 7. 7s are in the realm of Netzach, and here's what we're talking about in Netzach. And like, Malkuth and the shape of it and the way that it shows up in card layout and like all that stuff just is so interwoven when you talk about the Thoth that it's now something I can never ever unsee. And I always remember in the Rider-Waite-Smith seeing the 10 of Pentacles in the shape of the Tree of Life, but that's the most obvious like Kabbalah reference I remember from RWS, or that has stuck. And with Thoth, it's like in almost every single card I'm thinking about the Kabbalistic association, which is super cool and fascinating. But yeah, what about you, Dani?
I think it really adds a lot to my layers. I like to read tarot in layers, and I pull intuitively. So a lot of that is just like where my intuition will go. The more I know, the more I can pull, and the more I can kind of see things that maybe were hinted at before, but now I can really realize and really put together in my head. So again, seeing the astrology come together, see the geometry of things, understanding, like you guys said, like understanding the Kabbalah and how that fits over it, and the concepts that are there, that now I feel like I have a name for what I was trying to say. Like before creation of Kether and things, like it's like now I have a name for these things. And I feel like that's kind of where learning the Thoth has really helped. It really makes it deeper and puts a name to the feeling, which I always try to describe. And now that I feel like I have a bigger vocabulary to describe what I'm seeing, feeling, and hearing. And so to me, that's what it really added on. Something concrete that I can even like grab and show, be like, do you see this? This is here. So this is why I'm feeling this, that, and the other. So like it's a vocabulary that I'm able to add on to and expand my tarot. So that's kind of what it added for my practice.
Yeah, I love the idea of vocabulary. Like for me, like I use this reference somewhere. I can't remember where I used it, but it's like chicken soup to me, or any kind of soup, right? You make soup. This is what tarot reading is like to me. And like when you pull a card, like whether it's a Thoth or any, it doesn't matter what deck, I pull a card, and that day, that moment, that question, that context, cards around it, I'm going to pick out different flavors depending on what's calling to me. And I feel like I have more in my soup pot now. So when I'm tasting my spoon of soup, it's like, oh, there's carrots. There were never carrots before. This is cool. So maybe I tried a little carrot this time, or maybe there's celery where there wasn't, or whatever it is. Like that's what it is for me. It's already transformed the way I read, because there's more in the soup pot for me to draw on. Whereas before I was reading effectively. There's nothing wrong with that. But like, I just have more flavor now, like more things to pick out. And I love that. I love that layer.
And to answer Greta, like I would never say anything is a must for anyone, but if you're like us and you just like love tarot and you love learning, then why not? Why wouldn't you want to just get all the books and read all the things and then whatever, pitch the books that you don't want, you know, or completely forget about Aleister Crowley, you know, just. But I would never say you must do this in order to be.
I totally agree. I think that's a really good point. Thank you for answering that.
Yeah. And it's like you got to think about it. My grandfather only read with playing cards. That was it. That was the end all be all. There was no other system. There was nothing written down on paper. There was nothing. You don't need anything, right? Some people, like, you know, in my belief system, you know, there are some readings that I can do. I don't need the cards. The cards are not what makes the reading for me sometimes, because my stuff is very spiritual related, but also adds on top of the psychology and the literary and everything. But like baseline, bottom line, the reading can be done regardless. But when you add things like visuals of cards, it's helping not only to guide you, but guide who's seeing it. So if it's your own psychology that you're looking into, seeing these things, the symbols, the colors, the shapes, these are going to pull other things, right? So it's like nothing is necessary. It's just, where do you want to go with it? What do you want to see, and how do you want to understand what you're looking at and what you're feeling, you know?
Yes.
Dani, everything you're saying is so smart. I can't believe you thought that anybody would think that you were not.
Hello.
Earlier she said, I'm like, what, girl? Yeah. Okay. I also think that, like Dawn said before, like it's a tarot deck too. So you don't, if anyone is thinking that you would only need to use the Thoth for some sort of like otherworldly, spiritual, like something, like it can totally be read for your mundane life,
Yeah.
stuff, which I have. Sometimes I'm like, ooh, I want to have this like moment, and the cards are just like, no, like get your shit together with your kid or whatever it is, you know.
Yeah.
How many have been called out by your Thoth deck?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep, I was going to actually ask. So we're going to be bridging or segueing over into a question about decks. Before we talk about other Thoth decks, though, I do have a bit of a question because I think I know where I land on this, but I'm curious where you guys are going to land on this. Is this a deck? Is this to you I'm going to study this and then put it away? Or is this I'm going to study this and continue to work with this deck for you? And you want to share like where you might, in what context you might pull the Thoth versus a different deck?
That's such a good question.
Oh no! Wow.
You don't have to know yet. You might not know yet. That's fine.
I mean, I think it's a deck for me for reading, and I will continue to read with it. It's funny because I haven't read with my RWS, my Borderless Centennial, and I did read with that quite a bit, and it's been kind of put aside a little. But I do think for sure that with the OG Thoth, I will definitely continue reading with it.
Yeah.
I think sometimes it reads easier than the RWS because I'm not like, it's there, it's on the surface. I'm not trying to guess at what hidden thing is layered beneath the imagery. Oh no, it's just right there in your face. Here it is, deal with it.
Yeah,
and I find that a lot easier to read sometimes. So, I mean, for me, it's definitely just an everyday reader too.
Yeah.
I find it actually like, it likes to read everyday readers, and then we're going to talk about different Thoth decks. Like my OG Thoth likes to be an everyday reader. It doesn't want to mess around. It just wants to get stuff done and let's move on with our day. Where I find some of my other Thoth inspired decks read a little bit differently for that.
Oh, okay. All right. What about you, Dani? What do you think? Do you know yet?
Oh, see, I don't know. I feel like it's one of those things where I feel like it is going to come out. One of those readers that, like Dawn was saying, is a no nonsense. It's just like everything is plain and simple on there, and like, but at the same time, there's like so much to it. So it's like I feel like it's like a bigger scope of that. So it's like in the same sense of like pulling out the Ace of Wands with RWS versus the Ace of Wands with Thoth. Like, yes, I can still see the same thing, but like, look at all of the fire that comes with it, and look at all of, it's a bigger energy. So I feel like when I need that bigger energy, I feel like that's something that I'm going to use. Right now, I'm so into that studying mind that I'm just trying to take in all the symbols and learn all these symbols right now. Yeah. So I'm very curious to see how it's going to progress, because right now it feels like something that I'm going to keep on my desk.
Yeah.
As like, what, I really just want to pull this out. I need a flat out answer, kind of the way that I use Lenormand, where like there's no guessing. It is what it is, right?
Yeah.
It feels like that to me right now, but who knows? Because
I'm gonna be over here
going too with like the other Thoth-based decks, totally different.
Mm-hmm.
Totally different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I find. Yeah. And we'll talk more about that, but go ahead, Lisa.
Yeah, we're definitely going to go there. So I feel like I'm probably going to be the lone wolf here and say this to me feels very much like the original RWS in that it's really great for me to learn with. But I don't have a huge desire to read with it regularly. I feel like it's kind of, to me, this feels like that. This is going to sound so bad. I'm going to get so much roast for this, but it feels to me kind of like, when, if you've ever tried to like learn piano or something like that, or learn music, how you get like the primer books that like teach you the basic stuff. That's kind of what this feels like to me. It's not that I can't read with it. It's more, it just feels like it feels to me like it's teaching me. It doesn't feel like it's talking to me, if that makes sense. It's like I pull it and it's like I'm meeting with my tarot coach and they're telling me stuff. And it's like, okay, cool. This is good. But if I'm in a position where I just want to read, I feel like I'm having a hard time right now anyways, getting out of my learning brain and into my interpretation brain. Mm-hmm. It's like I feel like I've forged that relationship with it. So for now, I'm treating it much like the RWS, whereas it hangs on my rack and I don't use it. But now that I've gone through all the cards, I'm working with other decks and now layering everything up. But super interesting. I was just curious if I was alone.
I feel that way if I pull more than like 3 cards. If it's more than 3 cards, then I start feeling like I need to like break out, my studies and like write everything down and start highlighting. If it's just 3 cards, then I can handle it. And then, but maybe it'll change,
Yeah.
In that same vein, like I haven't pulled very big spreads with this. Have you guys?
I've done a Celtic cross.
That's the biggest I've done is a Celtic cross.
Yeah.
I'm impressed by the 2 of you.
Zuma base, like, oh no.
I was motivated though, because I was down to like the way I did it is I would like pull a card,
Right.
I would and when I got down to just a few, I was like, I need to knock this shit out. I am ready to work with other decks now. So I started pulling big spreads, and like the Celtic cross probably took me a day to interpret because I was like, I had to read about each individual card for the first time and study each one and then put it all together.
Yeah,
I tortured myself.
that's kind of where I was like, you want to talk overwhelming? Like,
Yeah,
oh,
it's a
no.
lot. I feel like it does work really, really well in small spreads. And this is such a good, if you want a good like 1 card a day, but get lots from it, I feel like this is excellent for that.
Yes.
Excellent.
Even the little
for
2 cards that our group pulls, I love that.
Yeah, that's been really good. Yeah,
It's
Marlene has started
very-
that. So in our group chat, once a week, she does a 2-card pull and then interprets it, and then we can all interpret it also. And that's been really good because if we didn't do that, y'all, I would not be looking at this right now at all. Because I'm a squirrel and I want to move on to other things, but I'm still liking that it keeps me in that space, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. So we did get a question, and this is a good segue. So this is from Kyra, who says, once you've studied the Thoth, how many decks do you look back on later and be like, hey, Thoth influence that you didn't see before? So I can start talking about some of the ones
Many.
that we had. Lots? Is that what you said?
Lots, yeah.
Many, yes, very many.
Yeah. I feel like in a lot of, even the Rider-Waite-Smith now, I see Thoth, like things that the Thoth showed me that I didn't see before that I see now. Yeah. So as a good segue, what is your, like, let's start talking other Thoth inspired, Thoth clones, Thoth in other decks we've already had. Like, what do y'all want to talk about deck wise? Because I know we got some.
And this is the part everybody waits for.
Yeah.
The audience, as an audience of you guys.
Yeah, this is the best part.
The deck part.
Well, let's talk just a little bit like about the difference between like a Thoth inspired or a Thoth, like how you guys kind of see that.
That's
so like I see like we were saying before, like if the astrological associations or Kabbalah is like very apparent, in the deck, then for me that's like a Thoth inspired maybe, or like it's but then there is Thoth-based for me. If I say, I guess this is a term I use, Thoth-based is like the creator said, I based this off of the Thoth. And the artwork is clearly like the colors and the artwork is like designed to look very much like
similar to yeah I think that's a good distinction. Like right now I feel like it feels like a very Thothy deck if I can see, like you said, if I can see the astrological kabbalistic references, and ideally also the color scales, because the colors played such a big role in the Thoth's artwork that if you tell me you're a Thoth deck, but I can't see the color scales at all, it starts to feel a little further from the system, even though I don't necessarily need that element. It just feels more Thothy if it has the color scale associations. I guess I'll, so who else? Wait, do we all have this?
Yes.
Do we all have the poker size?
Yes.
We do. And now there's a tarot size.
I know.
I was mad.
So mad. It was like a week after I bought mine.
I think we all ordered it on the same day.
I think so.
As we were chatting.
Yeah, we may have.
We were all like, yeah, we're doing this.
Talk about peer pressure.
Yeah, I found out about it first from Dustin, and I was like, no, I don't need that. And then that changed very rapidly. This is my favorite, in case you guys were curious. This is my favorite Thothy, non-Thoth deck. Like,
the best thing about it are the cheat sheets.
What's this?
Oh, I love those.
The
little
cheat sheet
cards. Yeah, the little quick and dirty.
This is great because you have the, now she goes her own way color wise in a few spots.
Yeah. They're
but
very much like mandala feeling.
There's so mandala feeling, but you can see the astrology. It's right on the card. It's really easy to spot. It's not like buried anywhere. And then this is what we meant by the I Ching and the court card. Hello, can we camera? Hi. It's not my face. I promise. Okay, there we go. It's right down at the bottom. You can see the I Ching hexagram. So you can look into that later.
Another one that has the I Ching on there is the Handal.
Oh, yeah. That one has a lot of I Ching in it, does it not? The Heindel?
That deck is
on the
kind
5.
of freaky to me. Yeah, it's a little bit freaky.
Yeah, I don't know about that one.
Like it scares me a little. Like it's like for me, I don't know, this is gonna sound weird, but it's like when you wake up from a dream and you're trying to remember like the weird stuff that you saw in your dream. That's what that reminds me of.
Oh, that's
it really does. Especially stuff like the Wheel of Fortune. Like, look at that.
Are you the only one? Does anybody else have the Heindel? I don't have it. Obviously, Marlene doesn't have it. Dawn, you don't have it?
No, I have the guidebooks or like the big books.
Dawn have the big books,
but I don't have the deck.
Oh,
like look at this deck card. Oh my god.
Oh my gosh.
And it's got like runes on it, and like, dude, it's got everything.
Did y'all see the Rorig Tarot? It's out of print. I technically have it, but I'm not keeping it. There's so many boobies in that deck. I can't. It's too much. It's like boobies on every card. What's that?
What does that mean? You technically have it?
Well, I have it, but it's in my purgatory drawer because I'm not going to keep it. Like it's away. I just remembered it now because you were talking about how the Heindel is weird, and I'm like, I thought the Rorig was so pretty. I tracked it down. I bought it, and then after setting Thoth, I was like, I can't with the random boobs. I just can't. I like boobs, they're fine, but
isn't it very like realistic?
It's like photo style collage.
That's
like
style.
Digital or photographic collage. I can't remember.
Yeah, that's not usually my jam. I like the Ashera. I don't know how to say it. Ashera. I like it. It hasn't been my favorite of the ones that I've been playing with. Yeah, it's not. I'm not sure of it still. I like it, but I don't love it.
Mine is actually like inching its way to my purgatory box.
I know. I know. It's my favorite.
But it's because I'm having a love affair with 2 other decks, and I'm just like, I don't have time for you because these 2, like, we have a little menage a trois thing going on here.
Oh my god. Okay, well, you have to tell us. Don't leave us in suspense. What are the 2 that are what is your menage a trois?
So it is these 2. The Hardy
Wolf. And man, I've almost gotten it so many times.
Oh my goodness. God, okay, so the Hardy is like, I did a whole thing on my channel with this, and I was like, I think it's Thoth because look at this and tell me this is not a Thoth card.
Yeah, it's very Thothy.
On the Etsy store, it says RW, because you have to like really read it all and dig down into it, but it says it's based on the RWS, and I'm like, but is it? And I'm wondering if the creator just put that because so many people see Thoth deck and go, nope.
Oh, I wonder. Because when you did your video, I thought it was very Thoth.
Like, I mean, you can see because again, Golden Dawn, you can see influences from both.
Yeah.
But like we have, justice. Oh, sorry, boobies, nudity. There's a lot of nudity in the next deck. But
we're fine with boobies. It's
justice is at 8, but all of the but we have like page, knight, queen, and king in the courts and stuff rather than our knights and stuff. That's true. But I mean, I have to draw the line somewhere.
I think it's good to have boundaries. It's good.
I mean, it's good. Boundaries are healthy. So and I love the kind of like Pip style artwork in this
deck. Now that is so
Thoth. It has like one of my favorite. I was trying to find it. I might have already passed it, but like the 3 of Swords is like legit how I read the 3 of Swords, which I never freaking see in a deck. Oh, here it is. Nope, that's not it. Anyway, it's not the Rider-Waite-Smith.
It's the storm clouds, right? There's like storm clouds.
There's storm clouds, and there's no heart because to me heartbreak is the 5 of Cups, not the 3 of Swords. I will go on a whole rant about that one, but I won't. And then the She-Wolf. This is like I call it like my fierce and feminine deck, although there is quite a bit of masculine energy in this deck, but it's like the colors. I think it's too big to kind of hold the whole thing up, but it's got this like, it kind of is like the Moonchild a little bit, right? And then it's photo collage, but this y'all has attitude. it is like, I don't care what you want or what you think.
Ugh,
This is
it's
the
sitting
way
on
it
my
is.
list.
But you can see here, if I could figure out, this is why I don't do videos like this, because I'm like,
I know it's so hard with the lighting block. I know.
You're doing great.
You're doing
But
really
like
well.
here, you know, we have the Aeon card or the Aeon card, and you can see like it's not Thoth inspired artwork, but
Yeah.
it does say it is based on the Thoth, and I'm just like having a total like love affair with this deck too. So
It's really pretty. I've been looking at it. I'm like, oh yeah, no.
It's on my
yeah,
list. I don't
no.
know. I don't
it's
know.
like one of those that I'm like, as soon as I got it, I'm like, why did I wait so long? Like somebody
That's
asked
usually
me
how it works.
earlier this morning, like if you had to choose between the Thoth and the Moonchild, which would you, or the She-Wolf and the Moonchild, which would you pick? And I'm like, well, they're two totally opposite ends of the spectrum, but if I had to choose one, it would be this one, because I feel like I
Really?
have so many other decks that hit in that Moonchild energy already, and I don't have a ton that hit in this energy. So
Oh my god. Okay.
Sorry, there's a torrential rainstorm going on right now. I apologize. If it gets too loud, tell me and I'll mute it while y'all are talking.
It's all good. Hopefully your internet holds up.
Right?
Just a little dicey. What about you, Marlene? What's your what Thothy decks are you loving?
I am loving the Outgrow Yourself. That's my favorite Thoth inspired.
I love the art. Oh man.
I love the key phrases at the top. I love this like body. It makes me feel like I see myself and like the women in my family in here. But
So
this
beautiful.
is a deck that's like not gonna F around with you either. Like it is not, it's like this deck is like a conversation that you have with one of your best friends where you laugh, you cry, you like come to Jesus moments. Like you have like it's like a night with your best friend where you're just like you realize things about yourself, your friend, like everything. And it's that I'm having like moments like that with it. And it makes me feel like a teenager, but it also makes me feel like my age or even older. Like it's like really
It does bring that teenager like vibe. Like as soon as you said it, I didn't realize it until you said it. Like teenage Dani would have loved that.
Yeah,
deck.
it just makes me connect with that like 16-year-old version of me who, and like I was like, yes, this is what she needed to hear.
And there's so much Thoth in this deck. It can't be stated enough. Like the color scales are in there. It's a little subtler as far as you don't have the actual astrological glyphs on it, but
you do have some of the little there are little swords in there sometimes.
Yeah,
and
like the actual pip references.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely loved both the way that you and Don, Michelle, Lisa talked about this deck as a tarot and as an oracle. And
that was on my list. I haven't watched it yet. So spoilers.
Yeah.
So I love this. One of the ones that I like. Absolutely. It's an everyday, like in my daily Thoth pull. I pull from the OG and then I go and grab this made by the lovely Don Michelle. For my like side by side, and it's really great because it gives you like that, the keyword gives me that like bouncing off point too. So
yeah,
doing that.
Awesome. Did you have another one you wanted to talk about?
I have some that didn't work for me too as a Thoth deck, but you guys go if you had other things that are that you're loving first. And then
I want to talk about the Star Tarot because this one. Okay, so this is the first edition, so I've trimmed it all down, and I'm super bonded with it. It was an original scissor trim. The Star Tarot, I talked about this deck as one of my top 10 guidebooks. This has a ton of Thoth in it. It is. Why do I have upside down cards? What is happening in the world right now? That is not okay. Okay, well, maybe the whole thing was upside down. We'll see. I really feel like I can. Okay, no. Get it in front of my face. There we go. Jesus, I'm dodging myself. There we go. It's really got a lot of Thoth, and when you start digging into the guidebook, you really see it. It does have RWS in here too, but some of the cards like that is very, very Thoth. Most of them I feel like really pull in a ton of Thoth references, and what's great about the guidebook is it literally will highlight. Like, look at
that one is Thoth.
Come on now. And the 6 of Swords in here is Thoth. The 4 of Swords, the Wand card, like they are. It's really like here's one that's very, very Thoth.
It's a good transition deck.
This is a wonderful deck. When I worked
good.
with this in April, like even this, get it in front of my face again. Card, not my face. Card, not my face. Okay, well, it's not cooperating. But there's a few in here. Yeah, like okay, this one. This is very Thoth for the 8 of Wands. Excuse me.
Yeah,
Or is that the 10?
electricity.
Now I can't remember. That's the 10 of Wands. But yeah, it does a really, really beautiful job. And what's neat about this is that in the guidebook, every single thing you see in the artwork, which I've talked about this before, is specifically pointed out, and what it means in the card is described. So it'll even bold it, like in the guidebook entries, it'll be in bold, and it'll say like, okay, the 8-pointed star is this, the web is this. This is why these things are in the artwork. It's so, so good. Love that one.
We had a major debate in the Supportive Tarot Facebook group about the mouse on the 9 of Swords in that deck. But
Really?
what that
I
mouse
must have missed
meant, it was like a huge, it was like, well, for me, it seemed like a big deal because it was on my post.
Oh.
But about the mouse, whether, because for me, the mouse was like a friend who was coming to like help you out in this time. And this is not a very Thothy one, right?
No.
But yeah, there was someone was like vermin, rodent, and I'm like, how dare you?
Oh no. No.
That was my little mouse friend coming to make me feel better.
Yes. And the other one I wanted to mention, although I didn't enjoy it like I thought I was going to, which is a bummer because I've repurchased it, is the Sun and Moon Tarot, which is very much a Thoth-based deck. It's intended to be a Thoth-based deck, has the Thoth-based keywords. Here's my problem with this deck, I think. I think my issue with this is that after working with all of these other very visually busy, rich cards, like the Asherah Tarot, the Star Tarot. I was like, what planet are we? The Star Tarot, the actual Thoth, the Asherah, the ones that are really speaking to me. I pulled this out and I was like, it's empty. It's too empty, and I loved that about it when I first got it. But
I was about to say, I felt like I was really gonna like the fact that it was empty.
Same,
because you like a minimalist deck, right, Dani?
I love a minimalist deck. Like, granted, another reason why I think I've stayed away from Thoth is because it's a lot of color and it's a lot of stuff on those cards. You know what I mean? Like, I get it now. Again, I get it now.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that. But like, I was like, oh, this is going to be it. But like, I need somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
You need the she-wolf. That's in the middle. Like, look.
People have been asking about the.
It's fairly minimalistic, but there's a lot going on.
Just talking about the new chapter tarot.
Oh, somebody asked about that one earlier, but I don't work with it because I didn't get it.
A lot of
people. I broke up with that deck.
I had rage over that deck.
I've been very back and forth over this deck. There is the influences. We have a lot of the colors, but like, so a part of me says not. Like, I mean, it is and it isn't.
It's very Thothy.
It's Thoth. Yeah. Yeah. I'm still.
I just felt nothing. Like like I don't know. It just totally
felt how I felt when I saw it the first time too.
My lighting was so.
I rage quit that deck.
I've really tried. Like, I really give it a good try. It is a hybrid, very hybrid. Yeah. There's some depictions in here that I'm just like, I just have trouble. It's definitely in my purgatory pile right now for that. I think I have all the ones that you guys talked about, but did we talk about the Gill?
Oh, that's the one that doesn't work for me as a Thoth reader. And I have to, like, I love the deck and I'm going to keep it, but I won't pick it up until I really feel like I have the Thoth keywords ingrained in me, because the keywords on that deck throw me off
because they don't match the Thoth keywords,
and some of them are like the exact same words on a different card, and I'm like, no, I'm not. Oh,
that would screw me up.
I haven't used it as a Thoth yet.
Wait, I pulled them out to show you, like right on the top, to show you which are the ones.
Oh, I can't wait to see now. I'm super curious. I did rehome this a long time ago, but it is a really cool deck. It just
Yeah, we have keywords on the
Majors?
court cards.
Courts. Oh, okay. That part's cool.
Like the 9.
Okay, so like the 10 of cups is success, but the 6 of discs and the Thoth is success, right?
Oh, no.
So I'm like, no,
forget
stop
that.
it.
Yeah.
Some like satiety in as the 4 of cups, like no, like stop it. That's not.
I never know that. Like I said, I haven't busted it out for a Thoth reading. I've used it a few times
is
before.
this the right one? This is right. 9 of discs is prudence. That's correct.
No,
That's
8 of discs is prudence.
8.
Isn't it? Isn't it?
Oh yeah, 9 is gain. 9
is gain.
Yeah, so it's like, what are you doing to my brain?
Don't do that. That's not okay. That would piss me off so bad.
And then
be able to do that.
3 of cups is
3
gain.
is gain. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love this deck. I really, really do. I got it before I used it before I ever started learning Thoth.
Same. So I was fine with it.
So it needs to just like hang out for a little while until I can come back to it.
If I had it still, now that I know that, I would be so frustrated with it. It would be gone because a lot of people, they trim their large Thoth to take away the keywords, but I love the keywords because they remind me of the differences in the Thoth and it makes me think about the card differently. So
if I didn't have the keywords, I think I wouldn't read it differently.
I want to say that I want to say it's Candy Stolen Soil did a keyword comparison video with different Thoth-based or Thoth inspired. That was really good. So you can decide which keywords you like or don't if you watch Candy's video.
I do have an inkling, and I have not sat down and done a side by side, but I really need to. I have an inkling, and maybe somebody in the chat knows, that the Osho Zen Tarot, which was my first ever deck, may have some alignment with Thoth. It's just an inkling. I haven't pulled it out to check, but I'm wondering. You mentioned that Candy did a comparison video. Candy, did you include the Osho Zen in that comparison video? Did that occur to you, or have you run into that? Because
I need to put Candy's video on there. Can somebody find that?
Yeah, if anybody can share a link, that would be amazing. If one of the mods can grab Candy's comparison video. But I think there may be some crossover there. I'm just thinking about some of the things that I've recognized about, and I mean the Osho Zen goes its own way in a few places. It does align subtly with the Rider-Waite-Smith, and I wonder if it also aligns subtly in some places with the Thoth. That's just a random off the cuff.
I never had the Osho Zen. I'm not like, I've seen it obviously a ton of times, and I've watched you talk about it so many times, even from the beginning when you first started on YouTube. And so it's like, but I never thought about it that way. So I'm curious too now that you say that. But like I said, I've never even held the Osho Zen in my hand, so I don't really know much about it.
Another deck that I'm sorry, another deck with keywords that some of them align with the Thoth, not many. I pulled just a few of them, but this one doesn't bother me at all, and I love it, is the Mythical Goddess Tarot. Now, I don't know if anybody else besides me would think that this is Thoth aligned or anything, but some of the keywords are the same. So pleasure for the 6 of Cups.
Yeah.
But the story and the artwork for me, so this is what, 7 of discs, failure.
Yeah.
And that's the same.
And it looks like it's got, that's a Taurus on there. So it's got some astrological symbols.
It has your glyphs. Sorry. Okay, here. Your glyphs are
so yeah.
It has them all there. Like 3 of discs or earth, and this one is works. And the coloring is the same too. Very similar if you do a side by side. There's not that many. 4 of Wands or 4 of Fire completion. That's the same keyword. And if I get these wrong, I'm sorry, guys. 2 of Cups. Look at the dolphin.
Love. Yeah.
Okay, love. And then there's some of them that are okay. So these are ones that aren't the same keyword, but they don't mess with my head, right? So 5 of Fire or Wands, conflict, like that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then, but this one especially, the 2 of Earth or 2 of Discs is cycles. Because I think of this card now from the Thoth as like the baby Wheel of Fortune. It's the baby Wheel of Fortune card to me.
Baby Wheel of Fortune, I like that. Yeah. The Urban Tarot, Dustin was asking about the Urban Tarot. I've seen it go by a few times. I had the app, the Urban Tarot on my app, like the app for it on my phone, but I've never got it in person.
Oh, okay.
And that was so long ago.
Yeah, the Lilliput Tarot came up too. When I first got that deck, and that deck is leaving me, but when I first got it, I tried to do a side-by-side with the Thoth and got very frustrated. I don't think, to me, it didn't align. But that could be a taste thing. It could be what you're looking for. So one last deck-related question. I know we've been on for a while, but the last thing is, are there non-tarot other tools, other decks that you've been using to boost your study, to help with, to complement, anything like that you'd like to highlight before we wrap up deck talk? I know there was at least one from Marlene that I'm thinking of.
I do. I feel like I've been talking a lot though, but
it's all good. And I thought there was one you were using too, Dawn, along with
there was, yeah. I didn't pull it out, but I was using the Oracle of the Radiant Sun to do whenever I pulled a card that had the astrological associations. Yeah, I would pull the related card from that deck and read about it alongside with the Thoth cards. And I did that for a daily pull for like over a month.
How did you like
my
that,
one
Dawn?
card and then my one Oracle of the Radiant Sun? It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. It's definitely something.
But like, did it add? Like, did you see?
It did. It aligned up in a lot of places, and then it added, just added that deeper layer to it, and really looking at it from that perspective and kind of focusing on that aspect of the card.
Yeah,
it was really cool. And they look really nice together.
Yeah, I was about to say like that. I love that.
Yeah.
And I was curious about that in like the other astrological decks, because I have like the compendium, I have the Radiant Sun, Heavenly Bodies, but I never thought about the Radiant Sun, putting it with that. I think I'm gonna do that.
It works really well because you can find the actual, all the cards line up. It's pretty cool.
That's cool.
I've been using the Heavenly Bodies. That's the one that I've used. And I think I sent you guys pictures in our group study. So like, for example, I will pull my Thoth card for the day. So this is 9 of Wands, Strength, and it is Moon in Sagittarius. So then, and I don't have the overhead thing. So then what I would do from the Heavenly Bodies, because it gives you the planets, and then the zodiac sign, right? So Sagittarius plus the keywords underneath. Yeah. And then I put them all, around the Thoth card. But then I'd also pull whether the sign was mutable, fixed, or cardinal, which I learned, in this study. So then Sagittarius is mutable. So I would look at those keywords too. And then also the elemental aspect, so fire. So then I just create like a little cozy, astrological family around the Thoth card, and then read, like, it just made sense. Then I would look at in my books, and then kind of it started to all come together, how you get that divinatory meaning or whatever from all the astrology together. It was just like, boom, it was so great.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. As soon as you mentioned that you were going to put this in the resource list, I was like, oh, and I pulled mine out, and I did that this morning. I pulled the Thoth card, and then I pulled a bunch of the associated cards from Heavenly Bodies, and I was like, oh, this is so cool. So I'm probably
and the colors make sense too. The colors line up. I'm like, how is that even possible?
Yeah, I love that.
And I love Heavenly Bodies. I love the look of that. I love the Radiant Sun. Those are like my favorite astrological cards to pull out. So that makes me very exciid.
Yeah.
Okay, so great. Last call for questions from everybody in chat. I do have a couple that we can address in the meantime while people are throwing out their last Q&A things. The first thing I wanted to bring up, oh shoot, did I lose it? I might have lost it. Hold on. Oh, here we go. Okay, so quick rundown of the court setup. So we didn't talk about this at all. No. The court system is different in the Thoth. quick impressions for me, and then I'm going to pass the mic. But the first thing that I wanted to highlight, and I can't remember if I got this from Lennon, one of Lennon's videos. I can't remember where I heard it, but it lined up perfectly for me, which is that in the Thoth we have, so in the Rider-Waite-Smith, we have page, knight, queen, king. In the Thoth, we have princess, prince, queen, knight. And so the structure feels different. And when you start to look at the elemental associations, it starts to get kind of confusing, because in the Rider-Waite-Smith, the kings would be, I believe, air, and the knights are fire. But in the Thoth system, so the knight and the prince, we would think align, right? But I don't think they do. No. I think, in my opinion, you go from princess, who would be semi-equivalent to the page, and they line up elementally. The prince is who becomes the king in my head. So he's air. The queen is still water. And the king is the knight becomes the king. So, wait, how did I say that right? No, the knights are the same. They're both knights. They're knights in both systems. So they're just in different hierarchical positions. So they're both fire. So to me, that's how I made it make sense. When you start to look at the Kabbalah and where they sit on the tree of life and like what their roles are, to me, it continues to support that theory. But that's how I reconciled it in my mind. I'd be curious what you guys think about how was that to adjust to? Like, what was your experience with the court system and what your thoughts might be on it? Anyone?
So yeah, sorry, I was thinking. So yeah, I didn't get to. I read it the way that it is in the Thoth when I'm reading Thoth, and I read it, Rider-Waite when I'm reading something that's Rider-Waite. So like the elemental, it doesn't mess me up. If I try to do like cross comparing too much with the quartz, then it gets confusing for me. So I just prefer to like let it be what it is for that deck that I'm reading with. Does that make sense?
It does. Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you two?
I read mine how I read mine, and that's just how I do it. Like, I found that I don't care what deck I'm reading, I'm still going to read it my way, because it might be Aleister Crowley's deck, but it's in my hands, so now it's mine. So I'm going to read it through my lens, not his.
Yeah.
And that is how I approach every tarot deck. Like, the foundation is my knowledge, and that's where I pull from, and I'll layer if it applies to the situation. So I don't have like one
set.
It don't matter what deck I'm using. I'm still going to read it the same anyway, like as a base, and then I'll layer on it from there. But I guess they do in a base sense I read it more like as it is, as it's meant. Like, if it says it's a certain way, then I'll be like, all right, fine, because I don't really read the quartz in the way everybody else does anyway. So I'm over here like just doing my own thing, and I don't care what you say, Mr. Crowley. I'm going to read it my own way. So
yeah, I like that. I don't think about it too much while I'm actively reading. It doesn't feel, but the knights in the Thoth and the knights in the RWS both feel very active. And they both have leadership qualities, but I definitely don't view the knights of the Thoth and the kings of the RWS exactly the same. They feel different to me for sure.
I don't, but they're more aligned. They're more aligned for me than Prince and Knight.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
I
feel like the Knight is just taking the king energy and putting it into motion.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's like the leader doing its thing.
Yeah. Oh, Dani froze.
Oh.
Oh, maybe she'll unfreeze. Let's see. So while we're waiting for Dani to unstick, Dustin asked if any of us actually read the Book of Thoth. Fess up, people.
Not in its entirety, but I've definitely reading it as part of it. I go back and forth.
Yeah. What did you
I read it last year, and I was like, I started highlighting some things, and I started marking out some things. So my Book of Thoth looks like it's like a bastardized version, because I'm like, this is madness. But I'm like, well, this is good. Okay, I'll have this. But I read it. He's a little too in love with himself for my taste.
Yes.
So I prefer to read resources talking about what he's created versus hearing his own inner dialogue just spewed onto the page.
I don't find him very easy to read. I do even the ramblings. It's like, at least he doesn't always even agree with himself, which is really frustrating.
Yeah.
And so I do have it on my Kindle. I've dipped in and out. I've looked up some things. Every once in a while I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. 99% of the time, what I prefer to do is look at Cats because he pulls relevant chunks out and spits them back out at me. And I can go, okay, that's cool. I like that. And in fact, in Katz's book, I've highlighted a lot of Crowley quotes. Oh, there's Dani. Yay, she's back. I've highlighted a bunch of Crowley quotes in Katz's book, and those have been great. But when I try to look at the Thoth itself, he annoys me more than he helps me.
It's also not in a like linear setup. So it's not like cards going, you know, through the majors and then the minors or whatever. It's like, here's a little bit about this card, and then it's brought up again later, and you're like, you know, someone maybe it was Duquette or someone that said that like this would have been much better as a website where you could like click around.
Yeah, he did say that.
Yeah.
I feel like you need to be like inebriated to understand what he's trying to get at. Like you need to have some sort of chemical thing adjusting your perspective. And then
it just reads to me much like anything like philosophical. So like if you've ever read anything like Hegel, if you've ever read anything like any philosopher, like they repeat themselves like over and over and like narrowly define things and branch and it's just, you have to like really be in the right type of mind frame to read to like dig into that kind of, it's just dense is what it is.
Yeah, totally.
Very dense.
I wouldn't suggest anybody start with it. Like if you're trying to learn the Thoth, don't start with that. You'll just confuse yourself.
Yeah, agreed. That's always the recommendation. And I'm like, why would you do that to people? It's like torture. I think it's good to reference original source material for sure. I think it's useful, but I would rather leave the work of mining out the bits that are helpful to somebody else who knows what they're hunting for and how to highlight the relevant bits. And that's what I really appreciated about Marcus Katz, because he doesn't even just reference the Book of Thoth. He references other pieces. I did read the Book of the Law, I think is what it was called, which was very short. That has some really cool tidbits that I picked up from, I think, Duquette's book. Particularly if you read the Book of Law, if it's the one I'm thinking of. Yeah, it's the Book of Law. If you read it backwards, have you guys done this exercise?
I haven't read it backwards, but I have it on my Kindle.
I think I got that tidbit from Duquette. There's a thing there about if you read it backwards, it's a very different. When you read it forwards, it sounds like all hellfire and destruction and awful. And then when you read it backwards, so you read each line from bottom to top, it leaves you with a very different interpretation. That was a cool, fascinating exercise. And that
but
would
is
be
this like a Beatles record? What's going on here?
I don't know. And I'm pretty sure it was something intentional and something about, it might have even lined up with, if I remember correctly, it might have even lined up with the Tree of Life, but don't quote me on that. I can't remember what it was, but there was a really cool.
That's
experience.
so bizarre. Talk about messing with people's minds.
Yeah. What's that?
And what is that book?
The Book of the Law, I think is what it's called.
Law.
It's on sacredtext.com. It's one of those ones you can get online for free.
That's the one that talks about Thelema, right?
Yeah.
And that's so you can learn who Nuit is and all the, okay.
That was the one that I think was channeled.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
It's trippy and weird. But
it definitely reads like something that was channeled. It's interesting. I think it's free on, I think my copy I got for free on Kindle.
Yeah, I think I just looked it up online and found it online. Because it's not very long.
No,
but
it's not.
I guess if you guys had one piece of advice, I know we've shared a lot, but if you have any additional words of wisdom or pieces of advice to people curious about their Thoth or wondering about whether they should study it or want to study it, like, do you have any like last words of wisdom for people, tidbits or suggestions?
Just do it.
I mean, yeah, I would just say like, don't let anybody, anybody in the or wherever around you, like tell you what you have to do or don't have to do. If you want to get into it, do whatever you like. I mean, that's, and then, like I said before, I think I'm a broken record, but like, I love having as much resources as possible and then deciding from those resources what resonates for me, what speaks to me, what adds to my practice and what feels right. And then anything else that I don't like, I'm.
Yeah. And a lot of that is like, there are a lot of people who will say that about anything in tarot, anything in divination, witchcraft, whatever you're going into, you know, oh, well, the traditions and you're supposed to do this and you have to do it this way. And there are purists and there's this, that, and the other. But in the sense of like me, that would have kept me away from something and kept me away from learning something that has brought me so much more. So don't think it has to be this kind of pure whatever. Dive into whatever aspects. If it's just the minors you want to look into, then just look into that. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to do everything, and it doesn't have to be quote unquote by the book. Like, no gatekeepers. No. Because that's going to prevent you from just learning and expanding your knowledge. That doesn't hurt anyone. You know, the more we know, the better, in my opinion.
Yeah. And like, there's no harm in reading the things that that those people tell you, that, you know, like the primary source material. In fact, I'm like, yeah, I'll read it. Give it to me. I'll read it, and then I'll tell you what I think about it. And I'll tell you if it works for me or not. I'm not going to just like not do it either, you know?
Yeah.
Right.
What about you, Dawn? Any last words of wisdom?
You know, it's interesting. I asked in my Facebook group if people were working on the Thoth, and there were really polarizing responses to that. And I think a lot of it was revolved around Crowley as a human being.
Yeah.
And my only suggestion would be, like, in my opinion, you can work with a deck and not think that the person who created it was a wonderful person. I mean, I don't know about y'all, but I buy from companies that I know their owners are terrible human beings, right? I purchase, you know, from big companies, or I go to a fast food or whatever, and I'm like, yeah, your CEO is a piece of crap, but I'm still going to buy a hamburger here, right?
Yeah.
And I kind of look at decks in that way too, because a lot of it was like around Crowley. You guys know my thoughts on Crowley. I do not like the man at all. And I find him very in love with himself. And he reminds me a lot of other people that I have known and seen and stuff. So
same.
Kind of like, okay, but you can set that aside. And particularly when the deck is created, or the art is done by somebody else, if that is like your hang up, you can look at it as Harris's deck, because in my opinion, that's what it is.
Yeah.
That's where all the goodness comes from, is from the artwork. And you can take that and read with it as you will. And if you don't like the keywords, chop them off, like get rid of them. And, you know,
read it intuitively.
Just read with it in a way that works for you. Because I see a lot of people, and I get a lot of questions about how do you, like, Aleister Crowley was this, that, or the other. Oh yeah, I agree. He was a terrible human being in a lot of ways, but then so are most historical figures, as Dustin was just saying.
Yeah.
So are people nowadays, right? So, like, I see that a lot, that being a hang up for people. And if you want to work with the Thoth, and you don't have to work with Crowley.
You do not have to work with Crowley.
You don't.
And
have
I think
to
that's
work
something I was saying earlier, is that I felt like I had this stereotype in my head of people who were like really into Crowley, and that was not me. I was not interested in Crowley. So to me, being interested in the Thoth and not interested in Crowley was new. I was like, I don't know how to navigate that. And I think that's really, really good advice, because and I will point out, because there was a discussion also in my Facebook group about this, and I will just say it is valid if you can't separate the two, but don't let it be the thing that stops you if you don't want it to. Like, if you can separate the two, there's nothing wrong with that. If you can't separate the two, there's nothing wrong with that. But just know that, like, I think depending on which materials you read, like, for example, I felt a lot more Crowley from Duquette, weirdly, than I did from Katz. Or like Marlene pointed out, getting a book that's written by an author who actively criticizes Crowley is useful too. Katz criticizes and calls out Crowley's problematic beliefs and some of the stuff he puts in his deck. And I really appreciated their voices, because it helped me kind of like stay in that place where I don't need to be like a Crowley fan to learn from this deck. But yeah, I understand both sides of that equation for sure. I think my parting words of advice would be what we've all been talking about a lot. This is just repeating what others have said already. But if you're curious about it, know that you can dip into it and dip out. You can take just the pieces you want. Like Dani and Marlene and Dawn have all said, like, you can take the pieces that are interesting to you and then leave the rest behind. There are, and I have gotten some really interesting comments from people who are like, you must do it this way. And it's like, why? No, no. It's no different to me than reading a fiction book and you like the heroine and somebody else hates the heroine. Like, to me, if you don't have to like love every little thing to learn from something. And so that's it for me, is that if you're curious, don't be intimidated. Like, feel like you can take it one day at a time. Just start reading with it. See what you think. Like, there is no tarot police, like Dustin says all the time.
Yeah.
There's nobody gonna come knock on your
Nobody's
door.
gonna come and arrest you for, never touching a Crowley book in your life.
It's just a tarot deck. It's just a tarot deck. We just we put it in this separate space, but it's not. It's no different than any other. I could pull every tarot deck out of my collection. They're all tarot decks. So whether they're systems, and when you look at it, they're all borrowing from each other. So
yeah, there's a lot of everybody and everybody else's stuff. Like,
it's like, I don't know where this whole, Thoth is this and RWS is this, and like, it's all the same. It's all just a big old pile.
And there's a whole lot of problematic, like, dead white dudes in our canon of literature and everything. And I have learned from a long time ago, I'm aging myself here, but that like I have to, if I want to arm myself with some knowledge, I will read what the dead white dudes have written so that I can talk about it too. So I don't shy away from it that way.
I love that.
Yeah, and I think that's good, because otherwise the conversation, this is something I think, if nobody shakes up the status quo, the conversation will never evolve and change beyond the problematic elements. Like, if we don't take and reclaim and use a tool and reframe it in much more expansive ways, then nothing grows and evolves and changes. Somebody has to be willing to dip into something that started out not great to reform it, if that's something that we want collectively to reform. So yeah, thank you guys so much. I kept you on here for like over 2 hours. I'm so sorry if you have to pee or eat or whatever. We will let you guys escape, but thank you guys so much. And thank you to everybody in the chat for all of your thoughtful questions and for sharing your pieces of advice and your words of wisdom. It's much appreciated. And I'm just going to continue doing my thing. I hope we're just doing our study group thing behind the scenes. So it was fun to kind of throw the curtain back and show you guys a little bit of our conversations and bits and pieces. But thank you all so much. And we'll see you all again very soon.
Thank you for having me, Lisa.
Thank you for coming. Bye.